Hello. You are listening to the Carroll Connection with your host, Jared Carroll.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Carroll Connection. I'm your host, Jared Carroll, here to bring you guys another great episode. I want to take a chance to shout out last week's episode 122, titled Spontaneous Vibes, featuring Eli and my buddy Wally. Eli is the host of Spawncast podcast. Check that out on Simplecast or any of the available like Spotify, Apple, and all that stuff. And Wally is the host of Ever Changing Vibe podcast. You can check that out on Instagram, Simplecast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the major listening platforms. And on that episode, we talked about content creation, and like those two are like some of my favorite people in this world. We all do podcasts, and so like it was really fun to have that conversation about content creating, and we dove into kind of the struggles that you go through starting a podcast and how you kind of power through that. So check that episode out, thecarrollconnection.simplecast.com. Also available Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you like to watch your podcast, you can check it out on YouTube. Just search The Carroll Connection or Jared M. Carroll. It should pop up right for you. And another side note, if you want to be a guest on the podcast or want to return on the podcast, please reach out on Instagram at Jared M. Carroll or at The Carroll Connection. If you have my number, you could text me or shoot me a Snapchat or however you want to contact me, and we could schedule that into the future. So that brings us to today's episode 123 with Cam Sears.
How's it going, man?
Glad to have you on the podcast.
Glad to be here.
Glad. So, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, just kind of tell everyone who you are and what you're doing currently.
So, as you said, my name's Cam Sears. I currently am 22 years old. I work at a company called the Groden Center. It's a nonprofit organization where we work with adults and kids with autism. We provide housing and schools. So, I work in facilities. So, I pretty much, if a kid or one of the clients, we call them, puts a hole in the wall, I go in there, patch the hole. We do projects like painting and all that stuff. It's always fun because you can see like the expressions that some of the clients have on their faces when you walk in. They're like, oh my God, who's that? There's a new guy. And like they're all over the place, so it's funny. Other than that, I'm coaching currently. I coached Seekonk High School this past year. Shout out to the Seekonk Warriors. Just played Thanksgiving. Finally beat DR after a long overdue wait since my senior year, which was in 2017. So it was a good win. Good to finally see them get a win on a brand new field, which was good.
Yeah, turf field looks fucking dope. Yeah. It's about damn time.
It is about time.
It's about time.
I'm sick of that Thanksgiving day and that mud right in the middle of the field.
Yeah, the middle of the field. It was always funny because like the end zones were never really like, it's not like people weren't scoring. Yeah. I can say I'll say it on my grade. At least the end zones weren't used as much as they should have been. But like, yeah. But glad they finally got the turf. And we'll also probably dive into a little bit about your career too. Like aside from coaching, because as someone who has a brother who's autistic, I appreciate like the work in that field, and we could talk a little bit about that as well. Like I mentioned, off podcast, I like to start with family dynamic, and for any new listeners, I always like to explain why I do with family dynamic, and it's because we're talking about your life here. So I like to lay down the foundation, and that usually starts with your family, and that usually kind of starts with your upbringing and stuff like that. And when you dive into that, because everyone comes from different places, they have different family structures and how that works, and it influences who we are as people. So I like to always ask, in whatever you're comfortable with sharing, we'll dive into that, and then we could build off that. So I'll let you take the floor with that.
So yeah, I currently live at home with my mom, my dad, and my brother, and I'm pretty sure you graduated with Adam, right? In 2014, or was he 2013?
I think he was 2013. He wasn't in my class. He might have been.
Because I don't remember. Because I know.
Was he with?
I think he was with Josh.
Yeah. So yeah, Mayo's class. Yeah. So it's 2013.
2013.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he still lives at home. That motherfucker being 27. He's working it out.
I'm 27. I still live at home. Wait a minute. Wait a damn minute.
They're working it out. Don't worry. They got stuff going on. They just don't. They haven't made a big move yet.
Me and Adam were in talks. We'll probably get on the podcast.
They'll talk about it on the podcast. Tune into the next episode. So living at home still, just working, doing coaching. I originally said I'm only 22 and I have a fiance. We're looking into moving into an apartment pretty soon in March. Our wedding is coming up soon. Been busy planning that.
Congrats on that. That's awesome.
Thank you very much. We've been together since, it's been a long time. I think 7th grade. We were 13.
God damn,
and
that's
we're 22
crazy.
now. So so we've had our 9-year anniversary already, but what's special about our wedding is our wedding date is the same date we started dating. So on our wedding date, it'll be our 10-year anniversary.
Oh, that's kind of cute. I ain't gonna lie.
Which
I'm a sucker for that shit. I'm not gonna lie.
I said, and it's on a Saturday, which is awesome. I said it's even more better. I don't know.
You said that sounded no, it did sound right, but I know what you mean.
You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It's way better because
there you go.
It's one less date to remember.
Hey,
so for all you guys out there that can't remember
10 steps ahead
anniversaries, think big brain. Get the same date.
And that's always like, it's nice to hear that someone's in a successful relationship, especially in like the way that this culture has developed.
It's terrible. This culture right now, especially with like this generation of kids, it's terrible in my opinion.
Yeah, it's
like,
not
they
fun.
don't understand the dynamic of working. Like
commitment,
a relationship,
struggle.
You need to work. Like sometimes it's harder than a job because you might spend the rest of your life with that person. You have to know how they interact with other people. You have to know how they are like at home. Because a lot I get told a lot of times, like, you don't live with your fiance and you guys plan on moving in together? I'm like, yeah. I mean, we've been together for 10 years. Like, we know each other enough. And obviously we sleep over each other's houses. Like, It's not weird, obviously. But like, everybody's always like, I mean, you never know until you live with them. Like, dude, trust me. I know everything about this bitch. Everything that there's a need to know, I know. And if there isn't anything I know, then that's bad.
Yeah. I mean,
these things.
Almost like
this is need to know information.
I mean, almost at 10 years, you think that you would know the person, right. Yeah. So like for those people, like this is like a kind of null and void point to say, oh, you don't know someone until you live with them. Yeah, if you're like,
yeah, but you don't have like, when's the last time you were in a relationship, dude? Like, how long was your last relationship?
That was gonna be like my point, basically. It's like you got to really kind of analyze the people who are asking those questions because usually they don't have the experience in their own end. Nope. So it's like, and everyone's situation regarding relationships is always different. So it's hard to like, you can't really judge or give advice for people in like a specific sense because
you don't know how their their dynamic works. Mm-hmm. Like, I've also been told like, dude, like you're only 22 and you're getting married in the next 6 months. Like how are you even like affording all this? Like, dude, have you ever seen like Pinterest or like go on social media and just look at like people do these like $10,000 weddings, dude? And a lot of them say it's a lot better than a $50,000 wedding because there's usually only not that many people. It's the people that you really care about. So it's not like a whole bunch of friends you've had since high school that you don't see unless it's like every other month. But like, we're not having a super extravagant wedding. We're only having like, I say a handful. I guess it's not really a handful. It's like 100 to 120 of our. Most of it's our family.
Yeah.
And then a couple of our friends. So like, and our families kind of like already knew each other prior to us being together, which kind of sounds weird, but it's not weird. And just going through that whole wedding process is very eye-opening.
It's a business.
I didn't know how expensive that shit was. Like, we went to go visit some venues and like just to walk in the door was 20 grand before even like planning like your food, your flowers, or
and you're doing it on a Saturday too.
Yeah, and a Saturday is a big wedding day. So we're gonna have our wedding at Crestwood Country Club, which is only 7 minutes down the road from my house.
Yeah,
in the South Seacon.
I know a lot of people that work there, and they do a lot of weddings.
It's a great property. Like, it's beautiful. It's like everybody always says, "Oh, it's a country club. There's gonna be golfers." Like, yeah, but they keep you like away.
Yeah, they have a place for it. Yeah.
So like, it's not like you would never run into somebody that's actually at the club to golf.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess there's been instances, but I've never heard of.
Yeah,
heard
no,
of it
you'll be
happening.
fine. They do a good job over there too, and I know people that have done weddings over there.
So that's been fun. We actually Saturday we're going furniture shopping just to go browse at like Raymore and Flanagan and Cardi's
For like the apartment and stuff, basically.
Yeah. The apartment is already like pretty well furnished as it is. It's a nice apartment. I should say this. It's not really an apartment. It's more like a loft. And I say it's a loft because it's a single floor that's above a 2-car garage for one of our friends' houses. So they live on Reed Street, like on the back roads going through Rehoboth. And she lives in this big, extravagant house. Her dad has her own landscaping business. And that's where he keeps all of his landscaping equipment in the garage. And she's currently with her boyfriend living in the apartment because they just bought a house and they're waiting for the house to close and then they can move into the house. And she contacted us and she was like, hey, we're going to be moving out soon. Like, and I know you guys are looking for a place to live because at my house, we have an in-law kind of apartment that we originally built for my grandma. And it's only half finished. Like the other half has like the washer and dryer. But the finished half, we rented out to some of our family friends. And we currently have one of our friends that lives down there. And they're looking for a house, but the market is so fucking terrible.
That, yeah.
Where like if you wanted to get a house that's like 2-bedroom, 1-bath, like 800 square feet, it's like $300,000.
Yeah,
like you're not
like
good, and it'd probably be a shithole.
Yeah,
like
you'd be lucky to get that for that price. To be honest,
exactly.
And especially if you're looking in this area. Like I've been house looking, and I'm more looking New Hampshire and stuff like that. Like,
oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm a mountain guy, deep at heart. So if I can get property up there, and there's no state income tax,
I feel like that's always the dream for certain guys.
Yeah, I just
in the mountains, have a nice big dog.
Just want to.
In the middle of
I'm
nowhere.
a little dog kind of guy. I'm a little guy, so I don't like a. I don't like a dog bigger than me, but like I just want to have a nice property. Whether it's I prefer mountain view over lake view because like
I'd much rather have a mountain.
Because like if you have the mountain view, you can just fucking sip your coffee and do whatever you want, just staring at the fucking.
You can just park a seat right in a specific like part of your yard and just look at the mountains with a cup of coffee. You know, have a quad next to you.
That's the goal, dude. It's like I've put it on my vision board the last couple of years, and like I'm getting closer towards that goal. It's just the market sucks right now, and trying to figure it out with.
I don't even know if it's even going to go down that much. They're predicting.
No.
I personally think it's going to go down like a little bit.
We have a couple more years of this bullshit, like
totally
for sure, and like it's gonna get pretty bad. I want to circle back towards glad that we touched relationships and stuff like that too, though. Like I'm a big, as I was telling you, my social media TikTok is very geared towards that. And again, congrats to you and your fiance for the relationship and the wedding coming up. But diving back towards transitioning from like the family dynamic into kind of your childhood and stuff like that. Talk to me a little bit about the sports that you played and kind of like maybe the relationships that were developed in that point. Because usually during childhood, when you're playing sports, that's usually how you make a lot of your friends. Totally. So I want to hear about that.
So I played when I was growing up all through like elementary school. I always played football, baseball, basketball. I never played soccer. My mom specifically did not want me to play soccer. Usually you'd think your mom wants you to play soccer and your dad's saying, no, you can fucking play football. He's not playing that stupid shit.
Yeah.
But my mom didn't want me to play soccer because she thought soccer was stupid. So she was like, no, he's going to play football. I was like, fuck yeah, mom. But I started in 2006 was when I was 6 because I was born in 2000. Everybody's always like, you were born in 2000? Jesus Christ, I'm fucking old. Like, hey,
my brother's in 2000, so it's like normal to me.
Yeah.
Still, it makes me feel a little amical.
Yeah, Adam's like, dude, stop fucking saying that. Like, sorry, bro.
Fucking love Adam.
But my first year of flag football, that was the last year they were the Tigers. Mm-hmm. And conveniently enough, Jay Agile, who is currently the Seekonk High School head coach, his father and Joe Texas' father started the Junior Warrior program or the youth program. Mm-hmm. And when I was with the Tigers, that was their last year. And I went all throughout elementary school, middle school, going through the youth program. I met a lot of my current friends that I have now, played high school football with them. And you'd think having a father that coaches football, especially because Adam played, he's 6 years older than me, so he always play above me. And my dad coached Adam, but my dad only coached me like a handful of times, but my dad wasn't one of those like father coaches that makes their son play the star position at quarterback or whatever. My dad wanted nothing to do with me because he didn't want his presence to make an impact on what I did on the field. Like, he didn't want me to be looked as, oh, he just plays that position because his dad's the coach, which you see a lot because, you know, favoritism, and everybody, then all the kids in school like don't like him because, oh, his dad plays him but doesn't play me, and I know I'm better than him. But my dad always wanted to stay clear of that because he wanted me to like make a name for myself. My dad was kind of known around Seekonk because he was actually a world champion in arm wrestling, which a lot of people don't even know is a sport. It's a professional sport. He traveled. He got invited to be on the world team and go to. I don't think it was the Olympics. I don't want to say it because I don't want to guess. I don't want to gas him up. But he got invited to go to the world's team. This was, I think, before I was born or like right after I was born. So early 2000s. And he traveled to like Belgium, Tokyo, and he went all over the world to go arm wrestle. And like, if you look him up, you'll see good old Timmy Sears, all 5'6" of him. They'll say he's 5'8", but he's 5'6".
Hey, don't do it to the short guys.
Anything he says.
Can't do that to us short guys. We take every inch we can get.
Yeah, totally.
Gotta inflate it.
Yeah, and he was a good role model growing up. He always taught me and Adam, even though Adam wasn't his son, because my mom had Adam with a different guy. Mm-hmm. That other guy's great. My Adam still goes to see him like every other weekend. He always tries to visit him. But my dad always wanted us to be the best that we could be without having an outside influence. So having him always be on us, and I always prefer the harder parenting because it produces a better adult. I've seen these days, like, the more and more parents coddle their kids, they grow up to be like soft. They feel like they're entitled to everything. Anything that doesn't go their way, they throw a hissy fit. Like, I've grown up where if you work hard enough for what you want, you're going to get it, and it's going to feel damn good because you know you put in all that work and you're finally getting recognized for it. It makes a big difference, especially going into adult life, because when you get a job, ain't no motherfucker going to look at you and be like, oh, you're crying because you don't want to go to work today? Well, fuck you. I'm going to fire you. I'm going to hire this guy that wants to come in and bust his ass. That's what they're going to do.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. The way my dad coached too was like, he was the hardest on me every single time. Like, even like, he didn't always coach me, but like, I really relate to you in that aspect where my dad did not coddle me whatsoever. Honestly, he went even harder on me and made sure.
That's how it should be.
Yeah, and like, I'm grateful for two things in that. One, that my dad was involved as a coach, because I know a lot of kids don't get to experience that relationship. And as I've gotten older, how much I do value that. And if I'm lucky enough to have kids one day, I would want to do that for them as well, because it's a different feeling being on a team and succeeding with your dad as a coach versus like just some other person as a coach. Like, there is a different feeling to it where it's like you guys really get to share that moment, and like
it does. It builds more memories, especially like in sports. A lot of people think sports is just there as a hobby. But like, sports can shape a person into what they're eventually going to turn into as an adult. Like high school football, like there's a lot of other lessons that we teach outside of just football. Like, always, like, for instance, this year I also coach high school, and this year and last year, Jay always said, and he would always preach, like, being at practice on time. Oh, like, if you're going to be late, there's going to be a punishment. If there's any unexcused absences, there's going to be a punishment. And I feel like holding kids accountable is the best way to shape them into the young men that we're trying to shape them into. And we've had kids that take to it and they get their shit together. They become great young men. Like a lot of the seniors this year, they were little assholes when they were juniors because, you know, they still had that 1 year left.
Mm-hmm.
And even this year, like they kind of fooled around a little bit, but I don't think they fully understood that, like, dude, like some of you aren't going to college to play football. Like this is your last year of playing football on a field for a team. And after Thanksgiving, like when we were all in the huddle and like we're all congratulating them and saying like, you know, it was an honor to coach all of them. Like it finally hit them. Like, damn, this is it. Like for some of you, that's as far as you're gonna get, man. So you gotta take every lesson you learn from wherever you go and just incorporate it into some part of your life, whether it be respecting your coaches, being on time, always putting in all the work, because you half-ass anything, it's not going to go well for you because you're not going to get noticed. People are always going to be out there that are either going to be more talented, better, like more put together. But if you just bust your ass and work hard all day, people are going to notice. They're not going to take a guy that was handed everything over a guy that busts his ass hard for.
No, I totally agree with that. And too, and like with the way that the culture has shifted in like hardcore coaching and parenting too, is like the issue in today's society completely is accountability. People are lacking accountability. People don't, there's not enough consequences for people's actions, and people don't respect the consequences because usually they're not really consequences.
Yeah.
Because you see it in a lot of these children that are coming up and these kids, you see it in the sports too. And it was starting to change when I was even playing.
Like talking back to coaches,
that
like dude, that never happened when I played. Like if you talk back to a coach, like you'd probably get smacked.
Yeah, that the running the participation trophies. I was going to say everyone gets a part. Like that's still like an issue today, where everyone's a winner.
You
like
lost, here's a trophy.
Yeah, and I never really liked that format. And what was interesting too this year, somehow I managed to end up on the side of TikTok where it was talking about, it was all seniors playing their last game, and it really struck a chord. It's like anyone who's ever played high school football and has played football all the way up to that point too.
There's no other feeling than high school football.
And the way that they explained like playing your last game, like win or lose regardless. It's like with other sports, you could always continue like playing for teams and doing stuff like that. Football is not like that.
It's not. There's not like a legion league for football as there is in baseball. Like there's not travel basketball or AAU basketball there is that, but there's nothing like that for football. Like, yeah, you can do 7-on-7 leagues, but it's not the same as 11-on-11 good old fashioned hard hitting football. Like you'll never get that same rush that you got playing in front of a home crowd on Friday night. Like nothing beats that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like exactly that, where as you get older, you can always play in these. You can play in the rec softball league, the beer leagues, the pickup basketball leagues, but you can't play 11-on-11 pickup football anymore. Like it's not possible in adult life. Like
nope.
It just you can't do it.
Everybody's too busy.
People have families, they have jobs. There's just other obligations. Like there's semi-pro leagues, but like it's not the same as like that high school football. Like
and a lot of the times, like those arena leagues are in like those indoor stadiums that aren't even like a full field, and there's a roof where like if you try and throw a deep pass, it's gonna fucking hit the roof.
It's just not the same.
Sometimes you get plastered into the boards. It's like a hockey rink almost.
Yeah, it's just people who don't play football don't understand, because like they always people see joking, oh, why do you care why like so upset they're not gonna play a sport anymore? It's like football is one of those weird sports where like, and I'd lump maybe something like a hockey into it, where it's that physical type aspect of the sport. Is like you're really going to war with these dudes on a football field. Like you're laying your body and your literally mind on the line for the guys next to you. So like you're really risking a lot playing that sport, and people don't understand that because they think it's just a game. And like it's not just a game because there's so much poured into it that you don't see the
Totally.
lessons, the practices, the time spent together. Like there's so much put into that. And sometimes for a lot of these kids that are coming up, including myself and yourself, is you played your whole life doing this sport. So you've put everything, your
Yeah.
whole being, honestly, is kind of somewhat centered into that sport, and you lose that.
Yeah.
And I think I felt that my senior year, and I struggled for a long time. Honestly, and probably until I like really found this podcast, was like I didn't have that thing that I could identify with. Like football was my identity.
Same. I could never really think of like something else that I could do that would fill that gap, because I always like I didn't go to college because
we can dive into that aspect of this now too.
Yeah. So like I didn't go to college, not because like I didn't want to play football in college. Like I desperately wanted to play football, but I wasn't a very good student. So I knew me going to a college to play football and balance school, like that ain't gonna mix. Like I could sort of do it in high school, and I knew I couldn't do it in high school, in college. So I made a sacrifice. I mean, I regret it a little bit, but I feel like it was the best for me because it wouldn't have landed me in so much debt. I mean, and like I feel like it would have been such a burden on myself for all the going to practices, lifts, making sure you're eating, studying, going to class all the time. Like I'd be so burnt out. I definitely don't think I would have been able to do it. Even to this day, I don't think I would have been able to do it. So after high school, I went to MTTI, which is a trade school. And we have one in Seekonk and there's one in East Providence. I went to do HVAC, and which is heating, ventilation, and cooling. It's an acronym. And I did an 8-month program to get a certificate to be like, you don't get certified. Like within that class, you can take tests to get your certain licenses and stuff like that. But that class in itself was kind of like a life lesson and a turning point where like shit's starting to get real now. Like you're about to go into the real world doing a real big boy job. Like you're going into a field where like not many people go to, because even now, like trades people, it's hard to find guys that want to go work in a trade. Everybody wants to go to college, get this super high paying job as soon as you get out of college. But like that's not how it works, especially not these days. So when I got to MTTI, it was a good learning experience. I'm glad I did it. It definitely prepared me for the real world. And I mean, we did a whole bunch of shit in an 8-month span that you'd think like, damn, you probably could have done all that in like a 2-year class. But we fit it all in. We worked on, when it came to the equipment, like furnaces, boilers, condensers outside, which is for your AC, rooftop units on like commercial buildings, oil boilers and stuff like that. And then learning that groundwork and that base just to start was so helpful. And then transitioning into the working force, it helped. Now, as I grew in becoming an HVAC tech, I only worked in HVAC for, I want to say 3 or 3.5 years. I started with a company where I was doing maintenances for commercial rooftop units, which was fine. That was awesome. I loved doing it because if you say you had a maintenance that was going to be like 6 hours, it'll tell you like on our phones, it would have told us like this is going to be a 6-hour job. And you're commercial, so you don't have to be in somebody's house. You can just sit up on a roof for those extra 2 hours and just kill the day and do nothing. Like that's what everybody in the trade would tell us. That's what all my coworkers told us. Like, yeah, dude, if you're fucking on a roof and you're doing a 6-hour job, just fucking sit on the roof for 2 hours. Like nobody's gonna say anything. You're by yourself. So we would do that, and it made it a lot more fun than what it actually was. And then transitioning into my second year, there was like a little split in the company where they did like a full commercial and then the light commercial residential part. And I got thrown into a light commercial residential part. And that was the first time that I started going on call. And nobody could have prepared me for that shit. Like, I never once went with anybody to do like an actual, like to actually fix something. And I got thrown into on call just out of nowhere. I didn't even know I was on call until I got a call. And I was like, sure, I guess I'll go out there and look at it. I mean, it was the most stressful event I think I've ever had to face. Being on call and not knowing it really, it makes you think about like if this is really what I want to do for the rest of my life. And that was after that experience. For some reason, that was like the first time I started getting more anxiety. Like I started to get depressed after. I wasn't doing as well at work. Like I was miserable at home. And eventually, like, because I started to stop showing up for work, I kept saying I was sick when I just didn't want to go in, because I felt personally that they never put the time in to teach me. They just threw me in and expected me to know it. And then they got mad at me for not knowing it. So like that kind of pissed me off. So I was like, well, fuck these guys. I'm not going to go to work for them. And then eventually that led to me getting fired, because they're like, dude, your attendance sucks. Like, you're great when you're here, but like your attendance sucks.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, I get it. Like, I just sat there and I listened to the whole spiel. And he's like, you don't seem like you're very like upset. Like, it seems like you kind of like knew this was going to happen. It's like, yeah, man, I knew my attendance sucked. Like, it is what it is, man. Like, I'm a person that like, I could give zero fucks. Like, I don't care about, like, I don't want to say I don't care about anything, but like, I'm very carefree, where nothing really bothers me. I'm always calm. So me getting fired, I was like, yeah, dude, that sucks. I mean, it sucks. I had to clean out my whole fucking van in one day and leave. That kind of sucked. But there's just a certain dynamic in like, not, I don't know how to explain it, but it's different. That kind of kicked me in the ass to like say, hey, now you've gotten fired from your first job, it's kind of going to look bad for your next job. Because then they're going to ask questions like, why'd you get fired? Why is your attendance so bad? And I always blamed it on my migraines. And they're like, well, then, like, don't you do anything for that? I was like, no. Like, so then what the fuck's going to happen when you get a migraine at this job? Like, we're just going to keep letting you get away with calling out all the time? Like, that's not how it works.
Did you get asked that too at other jobs too?
I didn't. The reason why I didn't, though, is because I was very upfront. I was like, listen, I eventually went to a different company. It was called Diamond Mechanical, and my dad worked for them. He was originally a maintenance manager or a maintenance supervisor for a hotel, and they pulled him in because they service his hotel. So he became their service manager. So he would like send out guys to the different calls and whatnot. So and then he got me the job technically. Mm-hmm. And when I came in for my interview, I was like, listen, I'm going to be straight up. I'm going to be upfront because I don't want anything to not be on the table. I told him, I was like, listen, I get migraines a lot. I call out from the migraines a lot because when I get them, it's debilitating. Half the time, it's like a chain reaction. I'll feel it. I'll know it's coming. And then even though I'll take something, it gets worse. Like my head will start pounding. My eye, like behind my eyes start to hurt. My vision gets a little blurry. And then like it starts to make my stomach hurt. And then like I throw up. Like it gets bad. And like they were very understanding. Like my boss was like, yeah, I get migraines too. Like I know how you feel. So at first I was like, oh, all right. Like maybe like he'll understand. And then he didn't really understand that well. I feel like, I don't know if like, I don't want to say it, but I feel like my boss that I worked with was like a little on the spectrum because like he had like these like mannerisms about him where like he seemed like a very sociably awkward person.
Yeah, that's possible then.
So like I didn't want to like just assume anything because I don't want to like be a dick.
I mean, it's possible being older it could be undiagnosed too.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
completely different generation. So it's possible.
And like even with them, like I was calling out a lot. I was still like not satisfied. I didn't like the job I was doing. And eventually I quit that job because I started to like not like my boss. He was very like short with me. He didn't really teach me much. And like he got frustrated when I wasn't picking up on something right away because it was just me and him. It was kind of a smaller company, but it was a union company. And he wasn't very patient. And even though like my work hours were 7 to 3, it'd be more like 6 to 7. And they were never consistent. We had an account in P-Town, which was fucking horrible. Because I've had to drive from my house to P-Town to be there at 5 in the morning. And that shit sucked. And we had to stay there overnight. That sucked. Because we had to wake up even earlier to get there the next day. And like he would get like angry with me when I would just stand there. I'm like, dude, I'm going off of like 4 hours of sleep and like a Cocoa Pebble. Like, bro, I need like something here. Like I need to like sit down. And he never took lunch. I don't know how you can work that long and not take a lunch.
Yeah, doing a job that's a little bit more physically demanding probably
like,
too.
And like anytime he took lunch, he would eat while working. So it was never really lunch. And I was like, dude, can I just sit here and relax for at least 20 minutes? Not even a half hour, 20 minutes, please. And like nothing ever happened. I hated it the more I was there. So I quit. I worked at Dick's for a little bit in Seekonk. That was fun because I mean it's fucking Dick's. Like you can bullshit around half the time. I worked in the back with like the trucks unloading and all that shit. That was fun. And then life hit a little bit. I wasn't making as much money as I was. I had bills to pay. And I was like, damn, I kind of need like a job that actually pays more because making $16 an hour is not as good as making $21 an hour like I was my last job. So fast forward to my first year of coaching. That was when I went to a 7-on-7 game, and a coach that coached me when I was in high school, Joe Texera, town guy, grew up here, played here. He texted me after and he was like, hey, you're interested? Are you interested in coaching? Like, have you ever thought about it? I was like, no, I've never really thought about it. He's like, cool. You're interested in coaching for the high school? You could be a DBs and receivers coach and it'll be paid. I was like, fucking sign me up, dude. So I signed up for that. I figured I'd continue with Dick's while I did that just so I can like not have a super stressful job and then going from that to practice after. And it was great. My anxiety went away. My depression went away. I started like talking to people more. I wasn't as short with my fiance that I was before. My attitude changed. I finally got on a migraine medication because I actually liked my job. And my migraines went away. And then probably, I want to say I worked at Dick's for 6 months. Yeah, 6 months. And then right after my first year of coaching, so in the off season, a very good family friend of mine, you know them, Derek Gibson. Mm-hmm. He works at Groden. He's my boss. And he called my mom and he was like, hey, is Cam like available to work or anything? Or like, is he doing anything right now? And she explained like, he's at Dick's right now. He's not really like looking to be at Dick's for a long time. And he told my mom, he's like, I have a maintenance job open in facilities. He explained to my mom how the Groden Center works. It's a nonprofit company. We work with adults, kids with autism. Like if stuff breaks, he goes and fixes it. Like we paint rooms. We do all this other stuff. Like we put together functions for people. And my mom explained it to me. I went in and talked with Derek. I mean, I've been friends with Derek since I was a kid. So like, it was almost like you're getting interviewed by like your uncle.
Yeah.
So like I grew up with Damien and Marcus and Corey. So it was pretty easy to accept the job. And I was making more than I was at Dick's. And this was like the first real job where like I'm actually like working hard and I love it. And it's not because of the work I'm doing, it's the product of what I'm doing. It's making other people happy. Like I'll go into a certain house and just doing like the smallest minute thing, like putting up a TV, and all of the kids in the house are ecstatic. Like they're giving me high fives, giving me fist bumps. Like they're so animated. And even the staff members, like these kids have been waiting for this for like 3 months. And now that you've put it up, like they're stoked about it. And seeing them be that way, it really changed something in me where I knew like this is what I want to do for a long time. Because I never got that satisfaction in my other jobs because it wasn't really fulfilling. This job, I can at least say I'm doing something here. Like I'm changing something and I'm making it for the better. I'm impacting these kids' lives, these people's lives. And we've been told, we get told all the time by like the admin members. They're always like, dude, Derek, your facilities team is so good. And it's good to hear finally, like your work is being recognized, which I said earlier, like if you work hard and it gets recognized, it feels good. And it makes you want to keep going and be even better than you were before. And I feel like I'm at that point now where I'm almost in February will be a year since I've been working there. And I feel more fulfilled in 1 year than I have all 3 of those years combined working at HVAC. So I feel like I'm on the right track.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely on the right track. And it's like, I think everyone has those type of experiences where you do something that you really don't enjoy doing, and it inspires you to kind of like look outside things, and that's when things kind of come to you. And I had that similar experience when I left college and I was in the workforce. I moved to Texas for a little bit. And
really?
Yeah, I lived in Texas. I lived in Fort Worth for about a year. And
that's
then
cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then I lived in Georgia for about like a couple months, and then I quit the job there, moved back here, and started this podcast. And a lot of the stuff that I felt out there is kind of similar to what you felt, where it's just kind of unfulfilled, like looking for more of a purpose. And like, I think we all go through this in life, and it doesn't matter what age, and especially the younger you are, you're going to go through this. Like I was definitely around that age
it's
too.
It's different for other people too. Like sometimes like that, I'll call it like a grace period. Like that point in time, like it could take people longer. You could figure out what you want to do like in a shorter amount of time. It's all different. But once you find that one thing that like you can stick with, man, your life changes. Because I never thought that I'd be getting married in the next 6 months. And doing this job, I feel like I can actually maintain a life doing that job.
Yeah, and that's super important, is to be able to feel like you can. It's stability. It's realistically what we're talking about.
Totally.
Stability and having the comfort to do what you want to do. And like I've always talked about, like with my job, I work in the accounting finance world, and it's not the most luxurious, glamorous life to work in an office job and stuff like that. But like I've gotten more and more into this space where, as long as like I don't hate it, like it pays my bills, gives me insurance, and then I do stuff outside of work that I like to hike. I like to play football on Sundays. I have my podcast that gives me a lot of purpose and meaning that I put hours and money into. If you have these things that you enjoy doing aside from your bread making like position, I think you'll be really good off in life. And I think if more people, because like sometimes your job and your passion don't always line up either. Like, and it's very rare when those two collide. So if you're able to have a job that you can do and like to a certain extent, and not at least not hate it.
Yeah, and then like maybe do a hobby, like, or do something outside of it where like that's what you really wanted to do, then that's fine. Like go back to when I was coaching, like, or when I like my true calling, I could tell you every 10 out of 10 times would be football. If I could, like, my dream would have, obviously been to go to the NFL. I mean, I feel like every football player when they're young is to go to the NFL. But like after high school, it was like I lost that part of me. But now coaching, like it's not the same as playing, but I'm back into football again, which is way better than I would have ever imagined not having football. Like, yeah, I can watch it, but there's something different about being involved in it where it brought that piece of me back in from not having it since I graduated in 2018. So 4 going on 5 years now, where I finally could have football back. And that part of me that was missing was filled. And it was just awesome to be able to shape those kids into bright young men going into the real world, showing them the ins and outs of hard work, making sure you're respectful to everybody, because football players should always be the most respectful and the most feared person. Because in my opinion, if you can gain respect and know that nobody's going to like fuck with you because you're so respectful, like they don't want to have their respect taken away.
Yeah, there's a quote, like Jordan Peterson had a quote similar to something that you're explaining. Is like, you'd rather be to be like a warrior in a garden versus a gardener at war. It's like,
totally,
you want to be able to have that peace, to be peaceful, but in situations where you need to bring that out, hence a football field, you can bring it out. And I think that's like kind of what you're hitting on too. And I want to keep diving into this coaching as we get towards like this back end of this podcast, is talking about this coaching aspect. And I think you give really great insight into for these players, because you're someone who's recently graduated, who's recently gone through these struggles of life, and what this actual transition is. And I think it's great to have someone on the staff that has is in that progression. And obviously the coaching staff is pretty young relatively to what it's been in the past too. Definitely. So like these guys like Jay and Tex, like they're obviously a few years removed from this generation, what's growing up right now. Yep. So it's nice to have someone probably like you on the staff that can kind of more relate to them, kids versus them. That's exactly
what they told me. They're like, dude, it's so good to have somebody like you that's so young and that like just graduated, where they have somebody to relate to. Like they can tell you their problems because they think of you as like their friend. Like obviously you got to keep like that balance where like you can't really be their friend, but you can be their friend at the same time. X was with us when I was a senior and a junior. Like we would always hang out with each other. Like we would play video games with each other. Like a couple weeks ago at the end of the season, I started playing video games with our quarterback, one of our receivers. Like we started playing COD. I was like, dude, like you're gonna be graduating soon. It don't really matter that much. Like I think of all of these kids as like my little brothers. We actually have 2 girls on the team, by the way. They're awesome. So little sisters too.
Yeah, shout out that. Because I had Cabbie on the podcast. It's been almost like a year or so since I had her on the podcast, but she was super talented. And
yeah. She was insane.
She was nasty.
I remember sitting in the cafeteria during study hall and having her getting like letters sent from her from like Texas A&M and all this other shit. I was like, dude, you're fucking awesome, bro.
It's crazy. And just being at Harvard and stuff now, like she's
totally
super talented, super smart, super well spoken. Like that was a
she's
fantastic.
So nice
episode.
Too. She's not stuck up about it.
No,
she's so humble.
We talked about that in the podcast, but in terms of this, I want to know a little bit about like the transition from player to coach, like for yourself. Like how has it been? What is it like for you to kind of be in that leadership position, and how you have to kind of like teach these kids not only about football but about life?
So like it's a lot more demanding. You'd think like when you play, like, oh, I gotta watch film, I gotta do all this, like I gotta lift in, go to practice. But when you're a coach, that amplifies. So like you have to watch film, you have to think of what drills to run on certain days. You have to know what the other team's defense is doing, what the other team's offense is gonna do. You have to game plan, like you have to sit down and like go through plays, and you have to break down the film, which a lot of these kids don't understand takes a long ass time. Like we have to figure out what their formations are, and we have to put it in our terms so they can understand it. Like I can't put it in Aponiquit's terms. They'll never understand what the hell I'm talking about. But if I can put it in what our offense runs, then they'll understand, like, oh, so they're running this play, but it's this formation. And it makes it so much easier for them. And coming from just recently playing to coaching, I thought that it was going to be like a little easy because I just graduated. But I didn't realize it takes a lot. Like, it takes a lot out of you, too. Like, even like Jay and Tex will say it, like when you're in the season, it's awesome. But as soon as that last snap happens during Thanksgiving, your whole body just gets drained. Like we talked about it after the game, like, well, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do now because we spent 4 or 5 months of our lives trying to shape these kids into what we eventually want them to be growing up and trying to instill in them good rules, trying to be good role models for these kids because you can't go out there like going out there smelling like weed as a coach. Like the kids are going to look at you like you're a joke. Like you have to be able to gain respect from the kids too because they won't take to you really well if you don't stick up for yourself sometimes. Like there were moments when I first, in my first year, where kids would talk back to me and like they didn't really care what I said. They didn't really listen to me that much. And then towards like the end of the season, I eventually just snapped on all of them once. And it only took me to do it once. I mean, it sucks I had to do it. But then they finally realized, oh, all right, this guy, like, he's not a bitch. He'll actually like yell at us if we don't do what he says. And then transitioning into my second year, it was a lot easier. And I took to the kids a lot more. Like I started understanding like what their home life is. And like they thought of me as that older brother that they can tell their problems to. Like I had a couple kids like crying to me, telling me about certain things that are going on at home or what's going on in school. I'm like, dude, listen, shit happens. Like you gotta understand, like, yeah, shit happens, but you gotta learn from this. You gotta make yourself stronger so the next time it happens, you'll be ready. And obviously, like more other things like that. I don't want to get into their personal stuff.
Yeah. I would say to do that.
But like they've come back during the season, like, coach, from what you told me earlier, like that shit works. Like it's real. And again, like with the job that I have, like that was so fulfilling to know that I'm impacting somebody else's life. And the fact that it's a kid that looks up to you, it's so different. I don't know. It's just a weird feeling that like you'd never think you'd have, but like it's just weird to explain. Like I almost can't explain it. It's just a certain feeling that you get in your stomach where it almost feels like butterflies. Like you're nervous for a game, but you're excited at the same time. And being that role model that everybody can kind of look at and be like, oh, I can go tell him because he's young. He understands our lingo these days. And to see them like smile, laugh with us, it's fun. I honestly, I wouldn't trade any of that. If I could do the coaching for the rest of my life and have the job I have now, I'd do it, man, in a heartbeat.
And that sounds really awesome that you have found something that gives you, that kind of lights you up. And I've always said this on podcasts, is like, you can tell when people have really found their passion is when they talk about something that they love. And you clearly love coaching and you love football. And it shows in the way you speak about it, the way that you kind of embraced this topic and like what we've talked about. And I always love talking to people who are passionate about what they do. And something, eventually maybe I'll get into coaching myself. It's something I've always wanted to do. I did a little bit.
Yeah, like, I never thought I'd do it.
Yeah.
And then I just said, fuck it, I'll try it. Like, worst comes to worst, I decide to not coach the next year or whatever. But it like something switched. It was like a click in my head where I was like, dude, this is fun. Like, and it gave me like another way to express myself because I can like show the kids the real me, where when I'm at work, yeah, I have to be more professional. Like you can't do certain things because people are gonna be like, dude, that dude's like screwing off at work. But at practice, like sometimes, yeah, we all fuck around. Even Jay and Tex do it. But like, it's just like, I know it seems like I can't think of anything to say, but it's because I literally can't, because
Words can't explain it. It's
really
a feeling.
can't.
It's just a feeling.
You
And,
can't.
like,
Exactly.
I honestly, I know exactly what you're saying, and like people in the like listener might not understand, but like the way what you're describing is like how I try to talk about how I feel after as soon as I close out this podcast is like the way that I feel when we finish one of these podcasts or when I finish any of my podcasts is like I can't describe it. Like the amount of like happiness and joy that I feel from this is like undescribable, and that feeling comes from when you're doing something that you truly love doing, and it brings you the keyword purpose. Like you're finding purpose in what you do, and I think if more people could find their purpose or find their purpose is probably the better way to just say that. I think they'd be a lot more happier, and I think the part of my process of this podcast is talking to people who I think are on their path or have found their purpose. And it sounds like you're on your path and you're finding stuff that you really enjoy doing. And I hope you continue doing these things. And we are getting towards the end of our podcast here. I mean, technically it is my podcast, but you guys know what I mean.
It's totally yours, man.
You guys know what I mean.
I won't steal it.
You're too funny. But Cam, this has been awesome. I do have one more question for you, but is there anything that you wanted to say aside from the question I'm going to ask? I always try to like make sure if there's something that we didn't hit that you wanted to say before I dive into that. Anything, you don't have to have anything, but
I will say that with coaching, or it could be anything that you want to do outside of your normal work, do something it'll be like a break from life. With coaching, that's what it was for me. And that's why I really enjoyed it the most, was because when I went to go coach, I didn't worry about anything else. All my stress went away from work. I didn't think about anything after coaching. All I focused on was coaching. And it was so soothing to just know you don't have any worries right now. All you have to worry about is just teaching these kids. And it really helped my mental health to know that I can go to this safe spot and just do what I love to do. And that's just football. And there's no other way I'd have it.
I love that. And like that kind of ties into this last question I have for you. So you can kind of build on top of that is, what would your advice be to someone who wants to pursue their passion?
So obviously, like we said it before the podcast, like I'm not going to say just do it. But if you really want to chase your dream and accomplish what you really want to do, you have to be prepared to work for it. Nothing in life's ever going to come easy. It's not going to be some handout. You have to put in the work, bust your ass. Sometimes you got to scrape and claw above the person next to you. It sucks, but you're going to have to do it. They might be your friend, but it's you versus them, and they're going to take the better person. So if I were to give advice to anybody, I'd just say work your ass off, man. The harder you work, the more it's going to be appreciated, and the more you're going to get noticed, man.
Perfect. It's a perfect way to wrap up this podcast, Cam. I appreciate you for coming on here and telling your story and being vulnerable with me. I always appreciate anyone who can
I'm
sit
an
across.
open book, man.
Yeah, you've done a great job.
I'll explain anything you want to know.
I always appreciate people who can actually talk on a podcast. Like it's always like amazing because like the less that I have to talk, and I think the better the podcast is. I think the viewer numbers say it though. Like if I showed you guys my solo numbers compared to my episodes, like they would agree. But I'm just joking with you guys. But Cam, again, appreciate you for doing this.
This was awesome.
For you guys, if you guys like the podcast, please rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your family, share with your grandma. You can check it out at carrollconnection.simplecast.com. Also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you like to watch your podcast, you can search on YouTube, Jared Carroll or the Carroll Connection. Should pop up right for you. And if you want to be on the podcast or a returning guest, hit me up on Instagram, text me, however you want to reach me. But until next time, guys, peace.